Hey guys, I'm Rambo. So I was going to have a little chat to you today about the new Seafrogs A7R IV housing for Sony. So the Sony A7R IV has been my go-to camera for pretty much everything for the last sort of around 3 years. Epic camera, and I was super happy with it. But the A7R IV came out, and A7R III was 42 megapixels, A7R IV was 62. To be honest, we don't really need those extra megapixels, but they're nice to have if you want to crop or if you want to print something super big. So extra resolution, you know, I'm never going to turn it down, but there's a couple of things that the A7R IV does a little bit better than the A7R III. One, for me, the focus system's a little bit better. It's a little bit quicker, and you can also set your focal point like far closer to the edge of the frame. The A7R III sort of needed to keep it around the center sort of third of the frame, but with the A7R IV you can put it pretty much right down the bottom if you want, and you're still going to get like really good focusing down there, so that's really handy. Yeah, the other thing the A7R IV does that's epic is the video autofocus is amazing. I don't really shoot much video, but I've been a little bit here and there, and the focusing for video is just such a step ahead. You can do autofocus for video, so that's epic, or you can do like subject tracking for video. So I had the A7R IV and I was still shooting with the A7R III in the water, but Seafrogs has put out A7R IV housing, so I got one of those and I've been using that the last sort of few weeks, and sort of give you a little rundown about how I'm enjoying it and what I like about it, anything I don't like about it, and yeah, let's kick it off. So I've previously done videos on the Seafrogs housings before, so some of the things, the features on this housing I would have discussed before. Some things I'll go through again, other things I'll maybe just point to a little video which already says about those features, but we'll just give a little quick rundown here. So essentially, yeah, the housing is pretty much the same as like the A7R III housing. There's not really any major things that they've changed up. One thing that Seafrogs has changed from their original sort of surf housings that they brought out was I've added this extra metal plate here. So if you want to add a pistol grip, it's on the bottom to sort of shoot wide with your pistol grip there. That metal plate adds like a lot of extra strengthening, and I know some people with the original Seafrogs surf housings had a few issues with the bolts sort of cracking the housing, because they were just, the bolts were like going straight into the housing. So with this new metal plate extra strengthening, that's going to just give you so much more stronger connection, so you'll have no issues there. The reason that I really like the Seafrogs housings is they just have just an unreal amount of control. So it's just like pretty much a control for everything. So I like to be a little bit more creative and experimental in the water, so I'm always changing. I'll be shooting low aperture 1 minute, and then I want to shoot slow shutter the next. You know, sometimes I want to do back button focus, sometimes I just want to focus on the trigger. So for me, it's just unreal to be able to get to all the functions of your camera, and it just makes it so much more fun for me shooting in the water. So yeah, one really cool thing the Seafrogs housings has, and this A7R IV housing has, is they have an on-off switch. It sounds super simple, but so many of like the surf housing companies don't have an on-off switch. So real handy if you want to set your housing up the night before, get up real early. All you gotta do, turn your housing on and you're good to go. Often I'll just have a housing set up in my van, and I'll just be cruising around, and then if the opportunity sort of presents itself, I don't have to do anything. I'm just good to go. Turn it on and you're away. And it can be real handy too if you're shooting and you're running low on battery. You can turn your camera off between sets, which is great. Also has all your dials up the top here, so has a mode dial. So one thing I'd recommend when you put your camera in the housing is just set the mode dial on the housing the same as what your camera is set up on the mode dial. So if you're in aperture priority, set the A on aperture priority on the dial to the same position. So that way, when you want to change, you can just look at the top and you can swivel it around, you'll sort of feel it click. Otherwise, if you don't line them up, you've got to like look through the eyepiece and you're trying to look at the tiny text and work out exactly, you know, what mode you're in. So that's a lot simpler. And then same with the exposure compensation dial. That's really handy to have. I often will shoot like just an aperture priority and just put the exposure compensation down a little bit just to save that highlight detail, because I know I can bring it up in the shadows later on. So same there, you want to line that up with 0, or for me I line it up at -1, so then I can see. You can look through the viewfinder and see all this, but it's just so much easier just to be able to look on the controls. And then we have another dial there which does your other back dial, which for me will change my aperture or shutter speed depending on what mode I'm in. One thing it doesn't have is it doesn't have a control for the dial at the front here. So cameras will have 3 different dials. You've got the one on the back at the top there, you've got this one, the back control wheel, and then you've got this front dial here. So the beauty is that you can actually customize what you have on each of those dials. So some people freak out because if they're shooting a manual, they might be used to having their shutter speed on the front here, or the aperture on the front, and then so they think, oh well, crap, I got this housing, it doesn't have a a dial for the front control here, so what do I do? So all you do is you just go into your custom functions, and then you set that up so your aperture is on the top dial, shutter speed on the back, or vice versa. So I've actually got a little video that goes into that in detail, so maybe click up here somewhere and you can go check that out. So it's a real simple system to open the housing. So it just has a hinge and then just a single clip here. So that locks down, then it has that little safety that catches in. So you can't actually, no matter how hard you try, you can't actually pull that open unless you pull that little safety up, and then it'll open easily like that. I've had other housings in the past that have had like 12 wing nuts or whatever that you've got to do up to get into the back of the housing, and it's so much admin, especially if you're in a hurry and you just want to like change your card and get back out there, or change your battery and get back out there, and meanwhile you're like struggling dropping wing nuts in the sand, and then you can't find them, or the threads get all burred from sand. So it's a super simple, easy way to get in and out. The cool thing about this setup is it's actually got 2 O-rings. So there's an inner O-ring and then an O-ring on the little back plate there as well. So when you close it up, you've essentially got 2 different seals say if the water was going to get through one O-ring, then it would have the other O-ring to contend with. Another feature I really like is on the eyepiece. So they've got this little rubber ring. You can actually take that off if you want, or whip that guy back on. So it's just a little bit more comfortable. Often I'll have my face sort of squashed up like that, and I can feel there's going to be like a wave coming from the side. So it's nice to have that little bit of extra padding, that if you are going to get hit, then you're less likely to come out of the water with a black eye. Another control that it doesn't have, and I imagine that the reason for this is it'd just be super fiddly, is a control for the focal point joystick. What that means is you can't actually access the joystick when it's in the housing to move your focal point around. So I have a workaround for that one. So you can just set up like a custom button, it'll bring up your focus settings, and then from there you can just move that around with the little joystick on the back wheel, which you have sort of full control of with these buttons here. So I have a full video about that one, so again, click up here and you can go check that out and learn how to do that one. I only worked that out a little while ago, and I'll tell you what, it's just been super epic. It's probably the best thing I learned this year. So with the Seafrogs A7R IV housing, it's got removable ports. So you just have this little system here where you push this safety button down, and then you rotate the port, and then it pulls off nice and easy. So then when you put it back in, there's just a couple of dots that you line up on the top, push it in, and then as you rotate, you'll see the little button click, and then that way you know that you're all locked in. So it's quite good, because other port systems I've used in the past have just sort of had a thread, and you put it tighter and tighter. You don't really know how tight to do it up. You're squashing your O-ring in there. Sometimes you do it up so tight you can't get it open. So that's real nice and easy. It's just kind of like taking your camera lens off and on. So on the Seafrogs website, they have a rundown of all the different lenses that are compatible with each port. So this is just the regular port. So what I shoot with this is the 55mm 1.8. Epic lens. So I think this is the first Sony lens I bought, and like 6 or 7 years ago. And yeah, it's just been unreal. It's nice and small, super sharp. It's one of the sharpest lenses that they make. And yeah, it'll sort of never let you down, nice and quick to focus. So that's a good lens to use in the regular port, and I like that 55mm focal length. It looks nice in the water. Another lens that I would quite like, but I don't have to use with this one, would be the 85mm 1.8. I think that would look pretty cool as well, so that would fit in there nicely. And then we have this port here, which is a little bit longer, which is the port for the 90mm macro. So that's your 90mm there. So you can see quite a difference in the length of the two lenses there. So that's the reason that we have a longer port. So 90mm macro is a real nice focal length, and it's quite a fun lens to shoot in the water as well. So I often use that guy. So the lens I use the most is the 7200 f4. So I love longer focal lengths in the water, and this has just got like a real versatile range. 70mm is generally kind of like the lower end of what I like to shoot, and often I'm shooting at full at 200 because I just love that compression that you get. So Seafrogs have recently brought out a port for the 7200, which is unreal. I had my own one that I made up, but it's cool that they've got a legit one. Actually what it is it's just an extension. So if we look here, that's actually the same as the regular port there, and then this is what you can buy. So if you already have the regular port, you can just buy this extension and then put those guys together, and then you're good to go. Get your 7200 in the water. It comes with a little zoom collar here, and then so you have full access to the range of your zoom through the little zoom gear on the side. So real handy. Unreal to be able to sort of be shooting one wave at 70mm, and then you see something else come down the beach, you quickly whip it up to 200 and you can nail that guy off. So I have another video about the 7200 port. It was actually a video I made when they sent me the prototype, but it sort of gives you the idea of how that works. So again, click up here somewhere if you want to go check that one out. I'm not really much of a wide shooter in the water. I probably shoot wide photo maybe like once every year. Only really if I'm going to do like a split shot. The lens I use for shooting wider is the Sony 12-24 f4, and when I'm going to use that, I use it in the dome port. So you sort of need a dome because the lens is so wide that if it wasn't a port like this, you just end up seeing the edge of the port. So that's why you need to have a full domed out port like that, so that way, because you pretty much can see almost like 180 degrees, so in that way you can kind of see out in all directions. And then this is a 6-inch dome. You can also get an 8-inch dome. The reason you'd have a bigger dome, the bigger your dome, the cleaner split you're going to get if you're going to do half and half photos. So another cool feature that the A7R IV housing has is this little vacuum pump system. So you can buy a vacuum pump kit separately, and then what you can do is you use that, it sucks all the air out of the housing, and then it has like a little light that flashes to tell you that you've got a good seal. So just really cool to have that extra peace of mind to know, there's going to be no issues at all. Your housing's rock solid. If there's something sort of letting any air in, that's also something that's going to let some water in. So if it's airtight, it's watertight. So yeah, great peace of mind. And then these housings also have a little leak sensor on the inside here. So if any water does get in, what happens is you'll end up hearing this little beeping noise, and a little red light flashes as well. So if just a teeny little bit of water gets in, then you know you're going to be alerted to that, which is great. So on the bottom, as well as having the pistol grip attachment, there's other couple of mounts here. And so what you can do there is this is my A7R III housing. You can add a little side handle or sort of other accessories. You can add like a dual handle side by side. The reason I like to have an extra handle is just a bit more stable. So if you're shooting some video, you might have like 2 handles, and then that way you're just going to be like a little bit more rock solid in the water and have a smoother shot. So 7200 port has its zoom control on the port on the side here. And then for all other lenses, there's a little zoom control on the side of the housing. So what happens is you get a zoom collar which goes onto your lenses. So I have one for the 12-24, it just fits on top here, and then that lines up with this little zoom control. So when I'm in the water, I can just wind that from 12mm, and then if I want to shoot a little bit closer, then I just can crank it up to 24. So real handy having the full range of your zoom in the water. It's unreal. Yeah, so it's my little rundown on the Seafrogs A7R IV housing. So for me, that combo of having that A7R IV in the water, the thing is just a beast. There's not really anything that that camera doesn't do that on YouTube. Actually, there's one thing. I'd quite like it if they could shoot small RAW or a medium-sized RAW, because 62 megapixel might is a little bit overkill for some situations. Unreal if you're shooting big prints, but say if you're shooting some portraits or something like that, then something like 32 or 42 megapixel would be plenty. So it'd be nice to sort of have a slightly smaller file option if we could. Sony, are you listening? But yeah, the housing, it's a perfect solution for me, because it just has so much versatility. You can do anything you want as far as the camera controls go. There's not one camera control I think that I can't do. Only a couple of negatives would be not having that front dial and not having the focal point joystick control. But so as I said, there's workarounds for both those issues. So I've got videos that will show you how to solve those problems. So check those out. And yeah, that's it for me. Taking out. Take it easy.
Hey you! Have you subscribed to Rambo channel? Subscribe.